It was a peaceful afternoon in the small village of Vensor. The golden sunlight filtered through the windows of a modest home, where Grandma Elsie sat knitting in her favorite chair. Across from her, her granddaughter Eliana flipped through a glossy magazine filled with images of glamorous models. Eliana paused on a page and looked up. "Grandma, do you think I'll be as beautiful as these women when I grow up?" she asked. Grandma Elsie let out a soft chuckle and looked over the rim of her glasses. She smiled and said, "Oh, my sweet Eliana, you're already beautiful. But let me tell you something that matters even more: beauty doesn't last forever. And that's not something to fear." Eliana tilted her head and blinked. "What do you mean?" she asked curiously. Elsie set her knitting aside, patted the cushion beside her, and said gently, "Come sit with me, dear. I want to tell you a story about another Eliana. A girl who once thought beauty was everything. Until life showed her something far more valuable. Many years ago, in the very heart of Vensor, lived a young girl named Eliana. She was known across the village for her remarkable beauty. Her skin was flawless, her long black hair shimmered in the sunlight, and her bright eyes sparkled like the morning dew. Whenever she walked through the market square, people stopped and whispered. "Did you see her today?" one woman said to another. "She looks like a goddess," the other replied. Eliana loved the attention. Every morning, she stood in front of the mirror, brushing her hair, admiring her reflection. She often smiled at herself and said, "This face is my gift. It's the best part of me." She believed that as long as she remained beautiful, the world would always be kind to her. The winter festival was the grandest celebration in Vensor. On that chilly evening, the village square was filled with colorful lights, music, and laughter. Eliana wore a red silk dress that flowed like water as she walked confidently through the crowd. She was crowned Winter Blossom Queen, the highest honor for beauty in the village. The crowd cheered her name, "Eliana, Eliana. Our Winter Queen." Eliana beamed with pride as she waved to everyone. "This night is perfect," she whispered to herself. But as the festival ended and she made her way home, something unexpected happened. A bullock cart, heavy with wood, came speeding down the narrow road. The driver shouted in panic, "The wheel's gone. Move out of the way." Eliana turned too late. The cart tipped, and a burning oil lamp fell from it. Flames burst, and wooden planks flew in every direction. Darkness followed. When Eliana woke up days later, her face was wrapped in thick bandages. Her left arm was broken, and her once perfect skin had been burned. The side of her face she once admired so much was now scarred. She touched her cheek and whispered, "No. What happened to me?" The village healer stood by her bed and said softly, "You're alive, child. That's the miracle." But to Eliana, it felt like the end of her world. She asked for all mirrors to be removed from the room and refused to see anyone. She stayed locked inside her home, hiding from the world and from herself. Weeks later, a soft knock echoed at the door. Eliana didn't answer at first. But the knocking continued. When she finally opened the door slightly, she saw a little boy standing there. He had a limp in one leg and held out a small bunch of marigold flowers. He looked up at her and said with a shy smile, "You look like a warrior now." Eliana stared at him, stunned. No one had said anything kind to her since the accident. The word warrior echoed in her mind. She bent down slowly, touched the flowers, and for the first time in weeks, she smiled. That moment changed Eliana. She began stepping outside again. She met children with disabilities, women with scars, and men who had lost everything. She listened to them. She cried with them. She held their hands and shared her pain. To a young girl who hid her burned arms, Eliana knelt down and said softly, "I used to think my beauty was my power, but now I know it's my heart that holds the real strength." Inspired, she started a center in Vensor called New Home. It was a place where people who felt broken could heal. Where scars were seen as symbols of survival, not shame. Time passed, and Eliana never covered her scars again. She spoke at gatherings. She hugged strangers. She built hope where there was once only pain. People came from villages far and wide to meet her, to hear her story. She stood before them and said with calm confidence, beauty fades, but kindness remains. Grandma Elsie looked at her granddaughter with a soft smile. Young Eliana sat frozen, her eyes wide and glistening, completely absorbed in the story she had just heard. She was so brave. Was she real? Eliana whispered, her voice barely above a breath. Grandma Elsie leaned forward, brushed a loose curl from Eliana's forehead, and chuckled gently. She said, "What? You look surprised now?" Eliana nodded slowly, still stunned. Elsie smiled warmly and patted her shoulder. "Of course she was real, sweetheart. And we named you after her." Eliana blinked. "Wait, me? I was named after her?" "Yes," Elsie said with a tender nod. "We hoped that one day, you'd grow up not just to be beautiful, but to carry her strength, her kindness, and her heart." Eliana sat in silence for a moment, then leaned into her grandmother's arms. "I think I understand now," she murmured. "Being beautiful on the inside is what really matters." Elsie wrapped an arm around her and picked up her yarn again with a soft laugh and said, "That's right, my brave little Eliana. Now help me untangle this before it turns into a bird's nest."